few minutes, we can.
Yeah, Chris, you can actually make me host again. I'm done the other technical part, so.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining from all different parts of the world. It seems we're a pretty eclectic bunch today. It's actually an exciting day for us because we get to interview Reni, who's the founder of Rendoll, which is a fashion women's wear brand based in Lagos, Nigeria. Reni has a really fascinating story, so I'm really excited for us to sit down and have a chat with her and learn more about her entrepreneurial journey and the journey of her e-commerce brand. I think that at the end, we're also going to leave some time for questions. So if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat and we can deal with them later, or you can also unmute yourselves at the end of the session. Welcome, Reni.
Thank you for having me.
So I think it would be great for us to start with your story, because I think your route into entrepreneurship was quite an interesting one. And I'm sure that it would be great for everyone here listening to get a sneak peek into how you became an entrepreneur.
Okay, so I think for most parts of my life, I've always done one entrepreneurial thing or the other. So for example, like I started wearing weaves in maybe like when I was 15, 16. And then I had moved to England for A-levels and I started doing my hair myself. So a lot of my friends from back home would ask, oh, where'd you get your hair done? And I'm like, oh, I get it done myself. So I started doing it for my friends. And then after a while, I was like, you know what? I started doing this for free too much. I'm going to start charging for it. So I did that all through uni. So I already had like a taste of entrepreneurship. And for me, it was just like extra income. So it would be extra income on top of what I was getting from my parents that I could use to travel or basically just enjoy myself. So that's like the first taste of entrepreneurship I had. And then I studied law in uni, came back to Nigeria, went to law school, and then you have this thing called NYSC. It's like a compulsory year where you work for the government after university. So while I was doing that and practicing law, I realized that, okay, I'm not really enjoying this. Like, it's not really giving me a passion to wake up every day and want to go to work. So usually, like in Nigeria, a lot of people will have their first degree and then do a master's. So my parents there saying, okay, it's time to do a master's. What law aspect are you doing a master's in? And I'm like, I don't want to do law. So I decided that, okay, you know what, I'll do an MBA, because I mean, it can never hurt to have a business degree anyway. And because I was doing it as distance learning, so it was University of London, but everything you could do from any country in the world, basically. So I didn't have to leave the country to do it. So I had discussed with my parents and I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to do an MBA. It's going to be from Nigeria, but I'm not working in a law office. Because if I was in school in England, you wouldn't tell me that I have to do a 9 to 5. So I'm just going to sit at home, continue doing hair and like selling wigs and whatnot. So I would have, so you don't even have to give me pocket money. It's fine. Like I would have my income, but I'm doing my master's from home. And then some random day in traffic, like there's a lot of traffic in Nigeria. So I feel like you do a lot of thinking when you're just kind of sat there. Mm-hmm. I was like, okay, you know what? I usually struggle to find clothes that meet my price point and my taste in Nigeria. So I would have to ask friends that are coming from England and I'd be like, oh, can you help me get stuff from ASOS or can you help me get stuff from here? And I was like, I mean, I have tailors that make random stuff for me in Lagos here and there. Why don't I just start a clothing brand? But it was really quick. Like I just told myself, okay, you know what, I'll start here, I'll make clothes for myself and for my friends, and that would be it. Like I didn't give myself time to think too deeply about it or to talk myself out of it. It was really quick. So this was March of 2019. And by June, I had registered the company. Now, luckily, because I'm a lawyer, that's what I was already doing before, it wasn't really complicated for me to register it. So by June, I had registered it and then I put it on social media. I just put the brand, like a picture of the brand, open an Instagram page, put it on my personal page that, oh, hey guys, I'm starting a clothing brand, watch out for this. And at that point, I hadn't even thought of the collection. I hadn't gotten my staff. I hadn't done anything. I just put it out there. And the reason I did that is for me, once I've put it out there, people are expecting, then I know that I can't say I'm not doing it anymore. So it was like motivation to continue. And then in July, I launched like my first collection. And from there, it's really just been social media because I didn't even have a website when I started. So it was mostly based on orders in Nigeria. People would just DM me. It was really manual. And from there, it just literally kept growing and growing.
That's incredible. And I think it's really interesting as well how your cultural heritage played a part in that, and your parents asking you to do some things and you kind of negotiating, okay, what do I want for myself and my future within the, the generational expectations.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting to see that from that you were able to kind of really fall into entrepreneurship and follow that path. And yeah, really also quite fascinating to hear about how you started already when you were still at school, and then you just kind of followed that. And I think that your approach has been very natural, and leading with social media is something that I think a lot of the people listening today will be really interested to hear more about, that because many of the people that we have in Ecom Connect are trying to figure out how can they leverage social media. To see that you have done it the other way around, I think is quite an interesting lens through which to view e-commerce. So yeah, I'd love to hear more about how your role as a lawyer and also the MBA that you took influenced the journey that you took as an entrepreneur, and how that ended up helping you on your entrepreneurial journey, or maybe if it also had its own ways in which it influenced you negatively. I would love to hear about that.
I would say like my legal background has definitely given me discipline, because the first office I worked in was about an hour and a half from my house, and we had to start work at 7:30 a.m. So I was up like really early in the morning, and it was literally back to back, back to back. And then closing time was 6 p.m. But there's this culture in a lot of Nigerian offices where you can't really be seen to be the first person to leave the office. It's almost like you're not serious, even if you've been there since 7:30. So I think that definitely gave me discipline. And the person that I worked for, I'm only just realizing now, years after, that I'm actually a lot like him. So he's like really particular about how he wants his stuff. He doesn't joke with his work. He like proofreads everything before it goes out. At that time, I think I was 21. So I just thought he was being extra. But then now that I have my own company, I can see that I'm replicating a lot of the stuff that I had learned from him. And then with my MBA, I would say the first thing that I learned was your business money is not your money. So if you really want to like build a company, you're going to get excited when you make like your first couple of profits, but you have to reinvest it back into the business if you want it to grow. Because what I really want for Rendoll is a business that's kind of independent of me, so that even if whenever I pass away, it can still live after me. And if you haven't invested funds into the business and continue to grow it, then it's just probably going to die with you. So, and with the MBA, I think it really broadens your thinking. So I wouldn't say that you need an MBA to become an entrepreneur, but it does give you other experiences, and you get to interact with a bunch of other people from different walks of life. And just generally the things you learn, like you learn accounting, economics, even if not in detail, but at least if I hire an accountant for my business now and they speak to me about certain things, I would understand what they're saying, even if I don't know everything about it. So it just gives you perspective, I would say.
That's interesting. And so when you started your business, you said that you kind of just went for it and you didn't give yourself really a chance to think about what you were doing, and it built quite naturally based on social media. So could you tell us a little bit more about that process? So once you had people sending you DMs, asking for information, getting curious based on also seeing information about Rendoll on your personal profile, how did you take the brand from that point to then actually building it into a scalable business with its own presence, its own brand? How did you kind of scale it upwards into something solid?
So one thing that I would say that I started doing right at the beginning is, because I have a lot of brands that I look up to, and there's so much competition on social media. Like almost everybody has a clothing brand today. So I looked at a lot of international brands. I kind of just studied their social media pages, went on their websites, and tried to figure out what images they were giving out. And then on my social media page, I only followed those people. Like I don't even follow myself on the Rendoll page. I kind of just follow brands that give me inspiration. So I knew that I didn't want to enter the industry on a rookie level, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I wanted to look professional. So I made sure that my social media page looked like other places that I was shopping from. Because I felt like if I looked too rookie, then people might not really take me seriously, and just like, yeah, maybe just like it's a hobby. I didn't want it to be a hobby. So even like the images that I posted on Instagram would be like high quality images. And at the beginning, I think a lot of what you really need is customers wearing your product, because a lot of people are going to come onto your page and see, okay, it looks nice. They don't want to see on just one model. They want to see on a variety of people so that they can imagine themselves in it as well. So I know at the beginning, even if I hadn't sold, I would get my friends to wear the products and I would take pictures of them that look really professional, just so that there was activity on the page. Because there's a lot of things with Instagram algorithms right now, and how if you don't post regularly, people don't see your post. So I make sure that even if it's twice a week, I have to post something on social media. So for the first, let's say, 8 months of the brand, I didn't have a website, because I couldn't even imagine spending £300 on a website. And it seemed like so much money to me back then, because I just thought, you know what, let me do it in the simplest way possible. But then I realized at a point that, okay, you know what, you're saying you want to be this global brand and you want to be this, you want to have international clients, but you don't have a website. And it's only easy for people that are Nigerians to transfer you money manually, but you actually need like a proper system. So with social media, honestly, it was just constantly posting, making sure that the images were clean, and working with influencers on social media as well, because I just really, really genuinely believe that your page has to be on point. Yeah. Like people have to come there and think, honestly, I want you to, the same way you would go on like Chanel's Instagram or go on Fendi's Instagram, I want you to come on my page and have that same professional feeling.
That's really so interesting. And I think this would be a good point to share your approach when it comes to influencers, because I'm seeing a lot of parallels between how you thought about curating the imagery on your brand on social media, the people that you're following, the universe that you're surrounding yourself with, and how you've chosen to approach influencer marketing. So I know that influencer marketing is something that a lot of the e-commerce brands out there are struggling with. I would love it if you could share how you developed your own personal philosophy around influencer marketing, what you've been doing with everyone in the audience today.
Okay, so there's so many different aspects to it. So how I first got into it, I have some entrepreneurs that are Nigerians that I look up to, and I just keep going on their page and seeing like a bunch of influencers wearing their clothes. So at first I was thinking, are these influencers buying it, or like, how do so many influencers know about this brand? And then I realized that it's because people were reaching out to influencers and asking for collaborations. So I reached out to 2 influencers at first. This was the summer of 2020. So this was like a year into the brand. And I just sent an email, tried to make it look as professional as possible. Hi, my name is Reni. I own this brand, etc. I really love what you do. I would love to send you some of our products in exchange for social media tags, etc. And I feel like you need to be really clear with what you want from the influencer, because at the end of the day, it's a job for them. And a lot of them are going to charge because it's a job, and that's fair enough. But at the point that I was when I was starting, I didn't have the funds to pay influencers. I mean, I barely had any money in the business. So when I reached out to them, I would be honest about it and just be like, oh, we're a new brand, we're trying to get out there, etc. So can I send you products and you basically post? And you will find some that, because you're a small brand, they will be willing to work with you. I would say don't shoot too high, but you can, because you never know if they're going to be willing to work with you without you paying them. So just try your luck and email about 50 of them, and you're sure to get maybe 3 of them to respond back to you. So that's how I started at first. And then I think when they posted, other influencers that followed them liked, oh, I like this outfit, let me follow this brand. So you have like a lot of that happening. And then eventually bigger brands started reaching out to me, like bigger influencers. And I still found that very surprising. I'm like, oh my God, like, how do they know about the brand? But then what I realize now is it's a lot of networking. And I feel like working with influencers is a lot of networking, because you give them clothes, they post it, people who follow them like it, they follow you back. So it's literally just over and over and over again like that. So I now even have more influencers reaching out to me than me reaching out to them. And that's because they also go on your page and they see that you've worked with previous influencers. So they feel like, okay, I can work. Yeah. And a lot of the ones that reach out to me aren't even asking for payments. They're actually just asking you to send them clothes and they would do the free promo for you. So I think when they also like what you do and like what your brand stands for, then they want to work with you.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I think also something that you said last time, which I definitely think is worth mentioning, is I remember you saying that what you started to do because you were getting so much demand with influencers is you only get influencers that personally influence you. So you started even curating your approach to which influencers you bring on board. I thought that was really smart as well, because of course, not every influencer is the same, and the type of connection and relationship that they have with that community is going to be slightly different. So I thought that was a really interesting approach that you had thought up for yourself. I also think that just goes to show that the effort that you put into curating a beautiful storefront on your Instagram page then scales outwards, because you've already created fertile soil for potential influencers to come in, collaborate with you, see it as a viable option for collaboration, and then that scales outwards amongst their network. So it's I think it's really interesting to think about that. I'd like to hear more about the other side of running a business. So did you run into any difficulties when it came to, let's say, the branding process or operations, getting, the operational side of your business up and running? I think that would be really great for us to hear as well.
In fact, I feel like every day there's a new challenge. Like at first, it was almost smooth sailing because I wasn't really making any losses. And I think the reason is because I started really small. So I didn't do a lot of stock down. What I did for my very first collection, I think I had 10 styles, and I only bought fabric to make about 4 of each style. So I made the samples, posted that on my page, and then if people wanted and they ordered in a particular size, then I would make it to that size. And the reason I was doing that was because I don't know how many customers I'm going to get. I don't want to take on these 4 styles and make it down to set sizes, and then someone comes to buy it and it ends up not being the size that they want. So I started really small. I almost had 0 inventory. So at that point, I wasn't really making any losses. And the tailors that I was using, they were not my full-time staff. So these are tailors that already had their own businesses. And the reason why I didn't get my full-time staff was because I was trying to reduce costs. So I can't be selling only, let's say, 10 items a month, and then I'm paying somebody so much money as a salary. So for the tailors, it was just an extra income. So they would make, when I have an order, they would make the clothes. So at that point, I was able to keep costs low. But then obviously the brand started getting bigger, so I was increasing inventory. And then I would say this was December last year. I'm not even sure what I was thinking, but then I went and ordered so much stock, and then it just didn't sell as fast as I expected it to sell. So even till now, I still have some of that inventory. So for me, it's trying to find a balance between providing enough stock that people can come and buy and not doing too much stock. Because one thing that can really kill a small business is too much inventory. Because if you're not making any revenue back from it, then you don't have anything to invest into your next collection. So a lot of that was like a big deal for me. And in fact, I still made the same mistake again in July by ordering too much stuff. Because what happens is sometimes you release a collection, you get so many orders, you have to do restocks. Sometimes I've done restocks about 3 times, and it's expensive to do restocks because I'm ordering fabrics from abroad. So I have to pay really high shipping fees. So sometimes you think, okay, let me increase stock, and then you might not end up selling that much. So one thing I would say that I've learned from this whole back and forth process with stock is just do a reasonable amount that you are sure that you can sell. And then if you need to do a restock, you do a restock. But it's always better to have to do a restock than have inventory that you haven't sold. And one thing I've also realized is people kind of like it when your stuff sell out, because then it seems a bit more exclusive. Yeah. So on the day that it launches, they're all rushing to buy it because they know that if they don't buy it quickly, then this brand is going to be out of stock, and then they have to wait another month to do that. Yeah. And then I would say in terms of staff, your staff can literally make or break your business. So you need to hire people that have the same morals as you when it comes to work. So at the beginning of last year, I went through maybe about 10 tailors in the space of 2 months. So I would get one, and the person is skilled, but their attitude towards work is just not working for me. And then you would get someone who has like a perfect attitude, and then they don't have the skills for the job. Or you have people who just think they can come into work at whatever time. So it's really difficult going through that process. And especially because Nigeria is a third world country, so you don't really have a lot of educated people. So a lot of things that you will find important aren't that important to them. So for example, they can be making a dress, and let's say there's a tiny stain on it. For me, that dress is condemned. But for a lot of people, they just think, yeah, I mean, they can still sell it. It's not a big deal. Do you get what I mean? So it took me a while to find my perfect team. And at first I kept saying, oh, I don't want to fire this person. I haven't really given them a chance. But I think one of my ethos is fire quickly and hire slowly, and then once you find your perfect team, then you can stick with that. So two things that really threw me off was too much inventory and like working with the wrong people.
That's just so fascinating. And I think you made such a great point as well about Nigeria being a third world country and having to really yourself develop your own philosophy of what do you want for your business, and then play your role in also mentoring the people around you who may not have had access to that level of education or thinking when it comes to the philosophy of work. And I think you've done obviously an amazing job, but I'm really appreciative of you sharing this in particular because many entrepreneurs don't share the struggles of finding the right team to scale with, and how much that can actually impact your business, especially if you're, working from a third world country and you're trying to kind of like every penny counts and can scale or potentially detract from the success of your business. So I think that was a really important point. I also wonder, just relating to that point, whether you have any advice for people who are running an e-commerce business from a developing country and they want to make sure that they hire the right people, but they're not sure like how to get started, how to make sure that the people that they're investing in they understand the same level of thinking around the work and the quality of work that they give. Whether any things that you picked up when you were doing that hiring process that you would like to share?
So I would say don't rush the process because so at the beginning, because I told you how quickly I went into it, I came up with the idea in May, and by July, my first collection was out. So I worked with 2 tailors that I already knew that were making clothes for me. Now it turns out one of them just didn't have the same morals in terms of work. So it's things like he might try to use like a substandard product just because the right quality isn't available. And these are things that if I had taken my time to actually vet the process, then I would have picked up on that. So it ended up with me having to let him go in the middle of having so many orders and then scrambling to find someone else. So I would say really let yourself go through the process of creating a team and finding what works, because it's not worth it jumping into the business and then finding that the team isn't right. Because at the point where you've gone into the business, you now have customers relying on you and you don't really have the luxury of taking a step back. So I would say figure out your team, at least a workable team before you start. So there's that. And then when it comes to social media, your website and everything, I would say like customer service is so important. Like in fact, I still handle customer service by myself because I still haven't been able to find someone that I know is going to give my clients 100% of what I want. And if you want clients to come back, then they need to have a good experience when they come the first time. And then another thing with staff actually is because a lot of the people that I work with now are not very like exposed like worldwide and what's going on in different countries and etc. I make sure that every achievement that I get, I share it with them and make them understand what it is, because then they feel like they're working for something that's bigger than they are. So for example, we got featured in Vogue magazine, and I'm sure that my tailors don't know what Vogue magazine is, but I had to like bring the print copy, kind of explain to them just like a brief history of what it is and how much of a big deal it is. And then I basically told him that, you see, like clothes that you've made have featured in Vogue magazine. So it's something for him to brag about to his family and friends and everything as well. So I would say always share your wins with them so that they also join you in the positives and also in the negatives. So if I keep telling my tailors something that I don't like that they do, maybe you can't keep making this way, or you can't keep doing this way, finishing is important, etc. And they probably think I'm being extra. So if I ever get a bad review, I'm putting it in the group chat so that everybody can see it. Because I'm like, you don't really see the other end of it. Yours is just, okay, you make the clothes and then I have to deal with the customers. So you don't really see the importance in what I'm saying when I'm telling you that this has to be this way or that has to be that way. So if I ever get a bad review, I have to share it with them. We all have to feel bad together. Like, it's not just me. So that way they know that there's a purpose in what they're doing and there's a receiving end of all their actions. So they're more involved in the process, because you need to give them, they all need to be involved in the mission and vision so that you're all working towards a certain goal together.
Wow, that was incredible. And I just think it's so interesting that you've grounded the positive and negative achievements within the reality of your customers and the kind of the wider world. Also, congratulations for Vogue. That sounds incredible. Yeah, that's a really important takeaway. If anyone here has an e-commerce business and they're thinking, okay, how can I motivate my team to perform at that higher levels? I think this was a really, really gem of a tip that we need to take away with us, is making people understand, why is it significant? Why does this matter? And not trusting that people will understand the importance of a particular job or process or piece of feedback without contextualizing it into the reality of the way that we live, our customers, the publications out there that are significant. So yeah, definitely, I think that's a really big takeaway for everyone. I also wanted to talk about the fact that you have customers from all over the world now. So I remember when we had our initial conversation, you were telling us that you can see more or less where the order's coming from.
Yeah.
I think that's an incredible achievement, especially coming out of Nigeria, developing this all on your own, then building your team from there, and now seeing that that's really been featured in Vogue and taken up all over the world. I think that's just so spectacular. So I would like to hear what contributed, in your view, to having that success all around the world and having customers in different geographical regions become aware of your product, because I know that that's sort of an important topic for people who are working in developing countries to get their brand out there into the world. So is there anything that you feel contributed to that in a great way, or any tips that you would like to share?
This is one area that I would give 90% of the kudos to influencers. So when I try to pick influencers to work with, I don't go for 10 people in the same country, because then they're reaching the same target market. So I try to work with people in different countries. So I would say I've worked with people in England, America, Spain, and Netherlands. So those are the 4 places that the people that I have reached out to have been from. So from there, you get, because the person that lives in America, for example, probably has Canadians following them, probably has South Americans following them. So the more you work with people in different countries, the easier it is to reach a wider amount of people. So I would say that's really what has helped bring. In fact, I released a collection and I was getting a lot of orders from America for the first time. Like, I had gotten sporadically from there, but it had never been like a large chunk. So I had to look back and think, okay, hold on. I worked with this influencer in America, and that can be the only reason why this chunk of new people are buying from the brand. And a lot of things is, so I like to work with influencers that are trusted, so that when they endorse my brand, people are going to shop because this particular influencer has said so, which is another thing that you mentioned about how like I pick the influencers that I work with. So if I'm not personally influenced by somebody, and then I'm not going to work with them for my brand. So there are a lot of things that I look at. Like I go on, like if someone reaches out to me, I go onto the social media page and I check how many followers they have. Now it's not always about the followers, because someone can genuinely have 100,000 followers and there's no conversion from that. So it's not only about the followers, it's about how they take their pictures, how they put out their content. And you can usually see how much work someone has put into it, any content creation, because of the quality of what they put out. And I also look at the comments and the interaction, because you can usually tell from the comments if people are buying what that influencer is selling. That's another thing that I look at. Then I look at if they have worked with similar brands like mine before. Because, for example, I'm not going to go to an influencer who sells pianos and expect that they're going to sell it for me. Do you get what I mean? So that influencer has to already be working in that field. Because I think generally people are influenced by other people for different things. Like, so I have people that I look towards, I look towards them for makeup. I look towards them for travel. I look towards them for fashion. So I would say just because someone is a really big influencer, and let's say they're influencing travel and vacations and cool, doesn't necessarily mean that you should, if you're selling a dress, you should give them that dress because they have 1 million followers, because people are looking to that person for travel and vacation, not necessarily for clothes. So maybe 1 or 2 people will like the dress and come and buy it, but yet they're not reaching your target audience. So you need to work with people that are in the same field as what you're doing. So yeah.
That was really helpful advice. And it's interesting also to see that you have not just chosen primarily English-speaking countries, but you've also gone for Spain and the Netherlands. So I think that's a little bit of encouragement to the people listening to just broaden out and not be afraid to go a little bit beyond your comfort zone and the influences that you reach out to, so that you can diversify your geographical reach. Okay, so I know that we have the Q&A coming up in around 10 minutes. Lucy, I think that she wanted to ask a question. So everyone, you can ask questions at the end of today's session in the last 15 minutes. There is just a quick point that I wanted to ask you about as well. So your brand is an advocate for body positivity and for women feeling more confident about themselves. And I wanted to ask, was that a conscious decision in the process of building out your brand and your mission and vision? Is that something that you deliberately integrated into that? Or is it something that just kind of came about through time as you started to see how other e-commerce brands out there were delivering their message? One of the reasons I want to ask this is I know that lots of the e-commerce brands that are part of Ecom Connect, they also struggle to articulate their mission and vision. And so maybe it would be interesting to also hear a little bit more about your thinking process.
Okay, so when it comes to body positivity, that was integrated into our ethos because we do like a wide range of sizes. Now, I think it would be unfair to a lot of small brands to say, oh, why aren't you going up to a size 26? Why aren't you going to size 28? Without actually looking at some of the deeper reasons. So when you're just starting off, you don't have a lot of money, or if you're starting off independently like I did, you don't have a lot of money to invest in a lot of sizes, especially because you're not yet sure who's going to buy from your brand. But I feel like you have to find a balance between doing enough sizes that don't leave out a large area of the community. So for example, you will find a lot of designer brands doing good past like a size 14, but the average dress size in a country like Nigeria is about a size 14. So if you've maxed your sizes at 14, you've left out a massive pool of, even if you're not even thinking about it from a fair perspective, like everybody should be able to find clothes that they sell, even as a business owner, because everyone is going into business to make money. So if you're stopping your sizes so small, you've literally left out a massive pool of income that you can possibly be getting. So I would say when I first started, I used to go up to a size 20. And this is just because I knew I had a lot of friends that went up to that size. So what is my excuse if my size 10 friends can buy my clothes? Like, what do I tell? I can't even bring myself to say, oh, we don't make clothes for your size. Like, it just didn't sit right with me. Yeah. So that was the reason why. And then I think one day I had someone DM me and she was like, oh, do you do custom orders? And I was like, oh, sure, that what don't you like about the product? I thought she wanted to edit the product. And she was like, oh, no, I like the product. You just don't cater to my size. I'm a size 24. And that made me feel so bad. Yeah. So for me, immediately, like I literally increased my sizing to 24. So I was able to take in more of society, because I just I don't like the idea of certain people not being able to buy my product because we don't cater to them. But then I also understand, that's why I said I understand when small businesses try and keep their sizes small. But I would think also do research. Well, a lot of people say, oh, I don't make bigger sizes because they don't sell. No, they don't sell because you don't make them. So the demand is there for them, because everybody wants to look nice, everybody wants to wear nice clothes. So the demand is there. You just need to find people that are willing to buy. So that's one thing for me. And I don't really believe in, I know a lot of it when we were younger, and just generally culture, they kind of tell you, oh, this style isn't for your body type, or you shouldn't wear this because you're not this, or you shouldn't wear that because you're not that. I genuinely believe that anybody should wear whatever they want to wear. And someone else doesn't have to like it. If that's what makes you confident, that's what makes you happy, then go for it. So one thing for me is I'm going to make a skimpy style in all sizes. I'm going to make a very conservative style in all sizes. And if it appeals to this person, then it appeals to them. So that's really important for me. And in terms of like communicating your mission and your vision, I would say, first of all, ask yourself why you're doing what you're doing. Yeah. Because if you don't know why you're doing what you're doing, that's already a big problem. So why are you doing what you're doing? Who are you trying to appeal to? I think even if you write all of this down and you have like a whole essay, but at least you have a starting point, so you know what it is. And then you just need to find a way to put whatever it is you're trying to sell into like 1 or 2 sentences, and then you come up with your mission and vision.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think that's a really important point, actually, the chicken and egg situation of, do we invest in doing other sizes if we're not sure that there is a market out there, and creating or accessing that market by actually going out on a limb and being more accessible to different sizes. We had someone in the comments say, I strongly agree with you on sizes. Every woman should get their sizes and know what will suit them. So, you know, it clearly is resonating with people. And I think that that's a really interesting point also about the mission and vision. And I know that that's something that is quite a big pain point for people who are just starting out, who they don't necessarily know where they stand and what they're standing for. But I just love how intentional you've been about every single part of the process, and also the role of listening that you have exercised with your customers. Sorry, Reni, I think Reni's frozen. You're still here. Okay. I was just saying that I think that what you've done really, which is really interesting, is that you're really listening into your community. And even when it comes to what you said about business and the role of your business is to make profit. And so actually capping yourself at a specific size range is not profitable, because you're actually removing half of the market. So I thought that was really interesting. And I think probably another glimpse at how your MBA has taught you to think in that way. But I do think that that's a very valuable piece of information for everyone to think about, is what are your customers telling you? If your customers are asking for size, maybe that is a sign that you need to be thinking about size diversification, or even when it comes to styles, right? Just really kind of listening to what the market is telling you and taking that seriously. I think that lots of brands don't necessarily do that, and they don't necessarily even kind of, when it comes to styles and what customers want to see more of, listen and integrate that into their approach. And I think that you're an excellent example of doing that, and really being in tune with your target market, your aesthetic, and the way that you built your community, I think, is very much intentional based on that criteria. So yeah, it was just kind of fascinating to hear about. Sorry.
To the listening aspect. I even like to add to the listening aspect, because I'm someone that I always know what I want to make, and I generally feel like what I like is nice, but I've also realized that it's not always that. So for example, I did a collection in like February, and I did like 3 restocks, and I was like, okay guys, I'm ready to move on to something else. So I made a new collection, and I still had people asking for the previous one. And the headstrong part of me was almost like, guys, like I'm done with this collection. I want to do something else. But you actually need to listen to your customers, because I did a restock and it basically sold out that day. So you need to find a balance between making what you want to make and giving customers what they're asking for. So there's that.
That's really interesting. And I think I listened to an interview by Tom Ford a while ago, and he was talking about how fast paced the fashion industry is and how you're basically constantly trying to find the next thing, and you're onto the next collection, then you're kind of sprinting and showing things and then onto the next. And I do think that it's important to spend time within that to refocus the dialogue around the customer. And otherwise fashion can become its own machine, and it's very easy to lose touch with reality. And so I think your approach has been very commendable on that front. Okay, so I think that we actually have time now for some questions, and there have already been people, there's been so much activity in the chats. So I would like to invite people to unmute themselves and ask their questions. And if you want, I know that Selam and Monique have asked some questions already in the chat. Would you like to unmute yourselves and ask?
Rashina, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. I captured all the questions, so I have them ready here. So do you want me to first go through the ones that have been asked already in the chat?
Yes, I think that would be great, and then we can get people to unmute themselves afterwards.
Perfect. So Nina asked, is there any specific strategy when looking out for influencers? And I know Christina shared a really great resource in the chat. But yeah, that was Nina's question.
Okay, so for that one, I think it's, do I answer them after you say each one?
Yeah.
Okay, so I would say for that, I think some of the things I've mentioned before, like you need to know, are you personally influenced by this person? And if you're not personally influenced by them, then the chances that your target market will be really slim. Then you need to look at the person's, whatever, even if it's YouTube, Twitter, whatever platform they use to influence, you need to look at their interaction with their followers. From the comments, you can usually tell if the followers are buying what they're selling. You need to look at the way that they convey their message. So the videos they make, the pictures, does it match with the quality of what you put on your page? Because there's no point working with someone who you believe is going to do a substandard version of what you already have on your page. Then it's not like your ethos aren't really matching. So there's that. And yeah, and I would also say, look at what field they work in, because you also want someone that's in the field you're trying to grow in. So you don't want to be working, even if like someone is really, really popular for makeup and you're selling something else that's not makeup, I wouldn't say you should work with that person, because even if their customers like what they wear, the likelihood of them being influenced by it is really slim, because that's not what they look to that person for. So these are things that you should definitely take into consideration.
Okay, great. And I think we kind of talked about this a little bit, but in case there's anything else you want to add, Salam asks, like, where do you look for influencers?
Social media. Luckily for us, like everything is on social media. There's TikTok, there's Twitter, there's Instagram, there's YouTube. I feel like everything is there. And another thing that you can do, for example, is you can look at one influencer. If you only even find one, you can go to people that they follow. Because the thing is, most influencers follow other influencers. So if once you found one influencer, you can look at their following, or their followers rather, go through them one by one and see what those people do as well. That's a good way to like kind of build your portfolio of influencers.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Monique asked, do you export your products? But we kind of already dove into that. So Monique, if there's any, like, if you want to dive deeper into that, maybe you can just pop a follow-up question in the chat or unmute yourself.
That, I would say, so I work with DHL. So you have a lot of entrepreneurs in Nigeria that try to export their products, but they don't have like constant orders. So you have companies in Nigeria that create an account with DHL, and then a lot of small businesses send through that company because they have the volume for DHL. So I was doing that for a while. But the reason why I ended up creating my own account with DHL is because I had started getting the volume. And I wanted it to say, you know, when you order from a shop and then you get a text from DHL, it would say your order from Rendoll is now on the way to you. But because I was using another company, it would say your order from the name of the store. So I just didn't feel like it was really personal and really professional. But I'm sure at the beginning, customers would understand that this is a small brand that's trying to export. So they will let go of like a little things here and there. But obviously, the bigger that I got, I opened an account with DHL. And the reason is like, if you I think for me, I don't know if it's the same rules for everyone, but if you get 12 orders minimum in a month, I think 8 international and 8 locals, 8 international and 4 local, that's within Nigeria, they can open an account for you. And the prices they give you are kind of like half of actually just walking into a random DHL store and saying, oh, I want to ship a product. So it ends up being much cheaper if you have an account with them. And it looks more professional to the customer as well, receiving their packages through DHL and etc. I mean, it's expensive, but I also believe that anyone that goes out of their way to buy from a small brand in another country is already invested in the company. So a lot of the times they're willing to pay the international fees. So I don't put any profit on the international fees. I just leave it as exactly what it is, because I think if it's already really expensive, putting profit on it just kind of shows to the customer that you don't really care that much about them. So I leave it as the exact price, and I'm very transparent about it. In fact, right now we even subsidize it a bit. So because I wanted a bit more international orders, now I pay a bit of the shipping for the customer, but that's because we can afford to do that now. But if you can't afford it, just be transparent with the prices, use the same prices and let them know it's not me that's charging this. This is just what it costs to do orders across countries.
Okay, great. So that answers actually Salam's question. Or I don't know if it's he or she, but was asking, are your customers willing to pay for the DHL? And I think generally it's just something we know when we're ordering online, internationally.
And people are more invested in small businesses now. So people are more invested in like the story behind your brand. So they're more willing to pay like an expensive shipping fee rather than buy from a fast fashion brand that maybe charges £4 because they buy into your story.
Right. Exactly. Okay, so the next question I have here is from Saitan, but I see her hand is up. So do you want to unmute yourself and just ask your questions? That would be great. There's a couple here that I had.
So I just wanted to find out how important, sorry about the background noise. I also wanted to find out how important it was getting a fashion related degree. Was it very important to get that before starting a business, or can you just use your, I guess, common sense, for the lack of a better word?
So I would say, I think sometimes I suffer from imposter syndrome, and this is because I don't have a degree in fashion. So I don't think that from my experience, I don't think you need a degree in fashion. So if you struggle to come up with like maybe nice designs or things that are very creative, then you can maybe employ someone or get a design team that can help you towards that. But I think there's more that goes into a fashion brand in terms of marketing that you don't really need the extra fashion degree, because I also think that a lot of successful like businessmen, so like the owner of Zara and co, I don't think they have any fashion background, because you can own a fashion business without being a fashion designer if you have a design team that's designing for you.
Awesome, that answers my question. Thank you, Ren.
Okay, great. So we have Jean's Place. You spoke about reducing expenses by not producing too many. From experience, if you reduce making outfits, your tailors on contract may leave and get busy elsewhere. By the time you need them when business increases, they are not available. How do you deal with that challenge?
Okay, so this is what I explained about at the beginning. That's why I didn't employ my tailors full time, because I knew I didn't have the volume to give them a living income, like a working wage. So I knew that whatever it is they were making from maybe the 10 or 12 clothes they were making wasn't going to sustain them as a monthly salary. So that's why I kind of allowed them do whatever it is they were doing on the side. But you need to have that open discussion with them and be like, okay, so you're allowed to do what you want to do on the side so you can make extra income. But when it comes to my work, you also have to take that seriously as well. And then as I am now, when I said that sometimes I've reduced inventory, I haven't reduced it to the point where it really reduces their workload, if that makes sense. So for example, at the beginning, let's say I was making 10 per style, and then I moved to making 40. So maybe I've come back to about 25. So one thing I do is if I have a new collection, I create a timetable and I know it's going to take them, let's say 6 weeks to make all the inventory. So so if I don't have a lot of stock, as opposed to giving them 4 items to make a day, I can give them 3 items to make a day, just so that it spreads over a longer period of time. So I'm not drastically reducing inventory to the point where the tailors are idle. They still have work to do. Or what you can do is, as opposed to doing 50 of one style, you can make it 4 styles and do 15 of each. So they still have work to do. And you just need to make sure that you always need to have a plan. So I know that if it's going to take them 7 weeks to create this, something else needs to be coming out at the end of that 7 weeks. So you just always need to have a plan for what your staff are going to do and not just kind of go with the flow. Because if you go with the flow, then they think you're not serious. Nobody wants an employer that doesn't look serious, or everybody wants that job security. Do you get what I mean? And the times that I actually don't have work for them, I still pay them. Because I don't want a situation where they can't pay their bills because Rendoll doesn't have stuff to sell. That's not really their business. They need to be getting their income monthly. So sometimes you just charge it to the game. You know that if you don't have anything to give them, you still need to pay. And that's motivation for you to keep working hard, because you know you always need to have work for your tailor. So you can't just take a break randomly, because this is not just you anymore. People are depending on you for a livelihood.
That's such a beautiful value, and not one that all businesses have. I think that's really amazing. Seitan also asks about social media and like setting up an Instagram shop. Do you sell on Instagram, and how does that work?
Yeah, so I found that a lot of the brands that I was following had like social media shops where they could tag their products. And I kept trying to do that and it wasn't working, only for me to find out that it's not a feature that was available in Nigeria, but it's available in a lot of other countries. However, at a point, maybe last year, I had downloaded a VPN on my phone. And that's just because Nigeria is sometimes very unstable. So we don't know if they're going to shut the internet off tomorrow or whatever. So a lot of people have VPNs. And then one day I just realized that the shop was working. And that's because my VPN on my phone was basically saying I was in a different country. So I don't know if it's legal. I mean, I don't know that it's illegal as well. But I mean, I had a VPN on my phone and it worked. So yeah, I mean, a lot of people have VPN. I don't know if VPNs are illegal, but with a VPN, you can have an Instagram shop. But this will probably only be relative to you if you're in Nigeria, because there are actually a long list of countries that already allow you to Instagram shop.
Okay. I mean, I don't think it is illegal, and I think it's just a very intelligent workaround. Jean's Place says, well explained and noted. Thanks, Remy. You've got a heart of gold. Okay, and then we have someone who said, how do you deal with logistic challenges for international customers? Or are there logistic challenges?
There are, if you're working with, so a lot of the times people go with smaller shipping companies because the prices are cheaper. But I've had issues of lost packages. I've had issues of packing an order beautifully because I'm really big on my presentation. And then it gets to the customer, it's like squeezed up. And it's just not how I want my brand to go. And that's why I went with DHL. I believe they're the best. So for me, I'd rather pay the more expensive fee and know that my customer is going to get their product in good time, in good condition and whatnot. So I would say sometimes just close your eyes and go for the best option just to ensure your quality, because you can do so much work behind the scenes of making the item perfectly, packing it properly, and then you use a random delivery company, and by the time it gets to your customer, it just looks bad on the whole chain. It looks bad on the delivery, it looks bad on you. And I just don't want to be suffering consequences of things that are not within my control. So I'd rather just go for the best.
Really good point. Yeah. I think that's all the questions in the chat. Is there anyone else that wants to unmute themselves and ask?
It says, what if you already made the mistake of having too much stock? Right now, I'm still living with that mistake because sometimes I walk into my storeroom and I'm just like, gosh, there's still so much here, but you can do a sale. Because at the point where you have so much stock sitting there, it's almost like, okay, this is like dead stock. So even if you have to sell it for like 70% off, just so that you can get something from it, as opposed to it just sitting there, then just do a sale, I would say, and get rid of most of the stock.
Yeah. Let's see.
Hi, hello. Just very quickly, and I'm sure Ren is already tired of me asking this question about the VPN. I mean, just because I've also tried the same thing, and I've realized that at some point it let the Instagram shop actually come up on my page, but then after some time it said I wasn't legible anymore. So do you have to maybe like leave it on for a period of time? Because I've also heard about cases where people actually have to leave the country and stay out of the country for about 2 weeks for Instagram to now recognize where you are and then allow the Instagram shopping go further.
I think you need to leave your VPN on, but if your VPN is off, then Instagram knows that, okay, you're now in a different country. Do you get what I mean? So my VPN on my phone is constantly on, so it always says that I'm in a different country. So if your phone, if it keeps going on and off, then Instagram is going to notice that, okay, something dodgy is going on here. So it needs to be on like constantly.
The best friend. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this session.
Do we have any more questions? I know we have like 2 minutes left, but if anyone is eager to get their question in, now would be the time.
Nina says, thank you. Lots of use.
I have one, if that's all right.
Go for it.
So you said that you use a lot of influencers, at least some, to introduce your brand in the international market. Do you also work on your SEOs to have a presence internationally?
So something, I built my website myself via Wix, so I don't have like a website developer. And I keep seeing that term on my website, something about SEOs, and I just keep ignoring it because I'm like, yeah, I don't really know what this means. I know it guides you a bit. So it tells you to use, like, there's some sections on my website when I'm building it, I told you to use keywords. So things like fashion brand in Nigeria or fashionable clothes for women. So you put in some keywords, but that's about as much as I understand about what SEOs mean. But I've told myself that it's something that as the brand gets bigger and I maybe get a website developer, then they can manage that. But right now, I don't really know much about what it is.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have any final questions? I see that Seitan has her hand raised. Is that still current hand raising, or?
I think it's just before.
Oh no, sorry, I'm actually trying to get that off. Ignore me, I'm done with all my questions.
Okay, great. So do you have any final questions? I think Juliet is connecting. Let's see. Okay,
I think there's just people still coming into the meeting, but they might have just gotten the time wrong.
Okay, so in that case, I think we had better wrap up. It's already 3 o'clock. I just wanted to say a huge thank you, Reni. This has been an incredible session. We've had so much amazing feedback. You have shared so many insights, and I just think that your attitude is incredible as an entrepreneur. You're so entrepreneurial. You have such a can-do, let's figure it out attitude. And I think that you can really see that across all of your business endeavors. I think that you can really see how much you've been prioritizing your customers and just figuring things out as you go along and developing your own approach and philosophy to business. And that is just, it's incredible to see. And even more so, I think, for the people in this room today to have heard it from your perspective. It just seems like everyone has really come away with a lot of value and inspiration. So yeah, I just wanted to say thank you so much for taking time to come here and share your story. We're really grateful, and I would strongly encourage everyone to go and investigate Rendoll after this session.
Sheena, I just forgot that I have a quick poll for people to answer if they don't mind. And we have just one more question that popped in. Do we have time to just ask it while people answer the poll?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, Tammy just asked, did it help being the face of your brand? Which I feel is a really great question.
Yes, it did actually. So I think I've just always been very big on social media. So I like taking pictures. I like looking nice, taking pictures. So on my personal page, I've always done that. Sometimes I get overwhelmed when I get too many followers, and I actually remove some followers. And this was like maybe years ago. So for example, I had posted a bikini picture on my Instagram, and one of my uncles had messaged me how you need to be conservative. And I'm like, yeah, so every family member is coming off my Instagram, everybody that I don't know. So sometimes I have like panic phases where I kind of remove a bunch of people that I don't know. But now I'm a bit more open to it. But I think definitely like a face behind a brand is always a good idea, because a lot of the time when I see new businesses, I'm more inclined to buy from them if I know who runs the business, because I can go on their personal page, I can just kind of see like what the person is about. And sometimes I even support just because I know the person before I even know whether I'm going to like the product or not. So I would say one thing that has definitely helped my brand is modeling a lot of stuff by myself and co. And I only even did that at the first because I couldn't afford a model, not necessarily because I wanted to, but I think it's definitely worked in my favor.
Okay, so that was, firstly, thank you for that answer. That was incredible and an amazing question as well. Okay, we're definitely going to wrap up now. So thank you again, Reni. And yes, the recording will be available after the event. You guys are going to see a post on Ecom Connect about it, and I think there will be an email going around as well. But yes, thank you so much. And please, please, everyone, go and check out Rendoll. It's an incredible brand. You will not be disappointed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Reni. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rashina, for the great interview.
Bye.